Good morning, everybody. We are on page 79 of Gate of Trust. And today we're going to start the conversation about a very important issue, which people have asked about many, many times, which is, if we have, it's one thing to say you have to trust in Hashem, but does that mean we become passive? What about human efforts? Surely we can't sit back and just rely on Hashem to do everything for us. No. So for that, ladies and gentlemen, let us continue reading in the book. 79 at the bottom of the page. The fifth introduction the person should clearly see. This is introduction number 5. A person should clearly see that the completion of all the matters that come to be in this world after its creation come to be in one of 2 ways. Everything comes around in one of 2 ways. One of the manners which they come to be is solely due to the decrees of the Creator. May he be exalted, and due to his desire that these things should immediately come into existence. The second manner in which they come to be is through various means and intermediaries. Some of those intermediaries are immediate, while some of them are remote, some are revealed, and some are hidden. But all of them hasten to complete that which God has decreed should be, and the way those things should appear, while God helps them accomplish this. A person is required to know that while everything comes from God, there are some things that God decreed should immediately come to be without any further action necessary. While there are other things that God decided should come into being through various means. An example of an immediate cause would be the drawing of water from the depths of the earth by means of a pulley and a jug tied to it that draws the water out of the well. The remote cause would be the person who ties the animal to the rope that is attached to the vessel, and is moving of the animal that pulls the rope to draw the water from deep in the well to the surface. Then there are those causes that are between the person and the vessels that are being used to draw out the water, which are intermediary causes between the 2 matters. They are the animal, the wheel that move each another, and the rope. If any of these aforementioned causes were ruined, the intended goal, drawing the water, would not come to be. Similarly, from other actions that come to be, they do not come to be as a result of people's actions or through any other entity. Rather, they all exist due to the decree of God and his preparation of the means through which the action will be completed. As the verse says in Samuel, to him all the causes have been counted. Commentary says God has counted and put into place all the causes, and if even one of them were to be lacking, the end result would not come into being. Other verses are quoted that state that God is the one who puts all the causes into place. As it says, and here are some verses, who is great in counsel and master in carrying it out? And it says, for it was something brought about by the Lord. If the means were lacking, then nothing would come to be as a result of the natural activities. So this is what the text says. It's a little bit complicated, but I think what he's saying over here is like this. Let's use his analogy of the animal that's pulling a rope, that's pulling a pulley, that's pulling a bucket of water out of the earth. So who is drawing the water? What is drawing that water? If the person says, I'm going to the well to draw some water, and he then goes to the well, hitches up his animal, causes it to pull a pulley, which causes a bucket to come out of the water, which causes water to then rise. Would this person, and this person came back and gave you the glass of water and said, I got you a glass of water. Would that be true? Did the person pull the water out of the ground, out of the well? I drew water for you today. Is that true? It is true. And if you turn to the person and said, well, you didn't draw the water out of the ground, the bucket brought the water out of the ground, would you be right? You would be right. On a very technical basis, you would be right. Or if you said the animal drew the water, would you be right? You would be right, but you're only seeing a small part of the picture. So
Because Hashem is behind it all.
So we're not up to Hashem yet.
Oh,
But I know
okay.
you're always thinking about God, and we can learn from you about that.
I'm sorry.
But we're still got our head in a bucket of water. So the idea being, so the question, so therefore, there's the big picture, there's the small picture, right? In the big picture, you look at the one behind everything. In the small picture, you can mistake and think that it's just the immediate cause that's responsible. Is that true or not true?
I still don't say, of course it's true, but the first part doesn't make sense to me. The second part makes complete sense to me, that any element that is needed for that water to be brought from the ground is through God's hands. Okay, even the fact that there is water.
So that makes sense to you or doesn't make sense to you?
It makes complete sense to me.
So what doesn't make sense to you?
Why he's dividing it into two? To me, there's only one.
So I'll give you another example. I'll give you an example from a midrash that we talk about in Chassidus, and we speak about it over here a little bit, but I'm going to ask you a question. You go to someone's house, you go to a restaurant, for example, and the waiter brings you a glass of water. Do you say thank you?
Yes.
Of course.
Does he deserve a thank you?
Sure.
But it's not his water.
No, but he's bringing you something.
Is he really bringing you something?
Sure.
Or is he just an axe in the hand of a woodchopper?
He's both, but he's doing it. You want him, of course you're going to thank him.
So the Talmud says, it's a quote from the Talmud actually, the Talmud says, Chamra lamara, tavela avda. The wine belongs to the master, the thank you goes to the servant, to the waiter. He deserves a thank you.
Of course.
Because firstly, he had a choice, he didn't have to bring it to you.
He could have spilled it on you.
He could have spilled it the way he brought it. He had a choice about how to bring it. Deserves a lot of thank yous, right?
Sure.
Does it make sense to, okay. So one second, what was your question again, Victor?
So in the story you just said, okay, Of course, we thank God for giving us the water, for giving us the glass, for giving the guy the ability to schlep it over to our table without spilling. But it's all part and parcel of the same thing. It's not divided in two. I don't understand the two that Rabbeinu Bachya is trying to divide it into.
I don't understand. What do you mean that what's he's trying to say?
He's
something
saying
like that.
they're two parts. He's saying very clearly. He
I
said it
understand your
very-
question. Okay, so your question is like this. So the answer to your question is like this. We have to understand that so I don't understand something. Why would you say, if there aren't two, why are you thanking the waiter? If there
Because
aren't
it's part and
two, why
parcel of
aren't
the-
you
it's part-
thanking the waiter?
It's part and
Why
parcel.
are
of
you
the
thanking
same
the
thing.
waiter? You shouldn't be thanking the waiter. You should only be thanking Hashem.
No,
But you just told me you do thank the waiter.
of course I thank the waiter.
Why? If it's all Hashem, why are you thanking the waiter?
So what he's saying is you need to thank both, and therefore there are two elements involved. Okay,
We're getting closer to what he's saying. He's saying that when somebody brings you a glass of water, two things are happening. On the one hand, a waiter is bringing you a glass of water. On the other hand, Hashem is providing you with a glass of water, and both are true. One is not contradicting the other.
yeah, even if the waiter drops the glass, Hashem
No, but
still.
the waiter over here didn't drop the glass.
What if he does?
The waiter didn't drop the glass. When
Thank
a
you.
waiter brings you a glass of water, there's two things happen. 10 things are happening. The waiter is bringing you a glass of water. The manager is providing you with a glass of water. The owner is providing you with a glass of water. And Hashem is providing you with a glass of water. And by the way, you're paying for the water, and Hashem is providing you with the water. Why should I thank Hashem for the food if I paid for it?
It's a privilege.
Because Hashem gave you the money to pay for it.
Of course.
So the bucket is bringing up the water. The rope is pulling the bucket. The animal is pulling the rope.
I was thinking the same thing, Rabbi. I was thinking I was going to Yasa Shun Ravi Lagatia. I was saying that to myself. That is so funny. I can't say great minds think alike.
Why not?
All right.
Because neither of us have great minds, but we could at least pretend.
No, if this is what
At
we
least
came up
we could
with.
pretend. Okay. we might as well pat ourselves on the back because no one else is going to. Okay. So what? That's what he's saying. He's saying that there's the big picture, there's the small picture, and both are true. So let's keep reading. When we contemplate a person's needs and how he's required to engage in various means and to exert himself in order to obtain his needs, then we will clearly observe this to be the case, that without the various means, the matter will not come into actuality. In other words, experience shows that if you sit around on your,
Tushy.
that's a nice way of saying it, Pacha, thank you, all day long. If you sit around doing nothing, you'll have nothing. You got to get up and make it happen.
Right.
For when someone needs food, even if the food is placed in front of him in a state already fit to eat, if he doesn't exert himself to eat it by raising it to his mouth and chewing, he will not satiate his hunger. You can bring the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But if you don't actually, in other words, it's an interesting example, right? You could say everything else you could argue. If you don't actually put the food in your mouth, you're not going to become full. You're not going to be satiated. Similarly, which is different to becoming full. Similarly, someone who is thirsty and in need of water will also need to raise the water to his mouth to drink. All the more so is effort necessary if the food is not ready for him to eat. So he's required to exert himself to prepare it by grinding the flour, kneading the dough, baking the dough into bread and the like. More exertion than this will be necessary and will be even more difficult if he needs to buy it as well as prepare it. Even more exertion than this will be necessary if he lacks the money with which to buy the food, in which case he will need a far greater exertion and involvement in various means than that which has been mentioned earlier. For then he will be required to hire himself out for work, to sell some of his objects and possessions or the like. So it's very simple, right? We also trust in Hashem. Hashem provides everything. Everything comes from Hashem. We've been saying this all along. And all of you have been asking an excellent question, but hold on a second. You can't sit back and do nothing. God requires us to do something. And I've sort of quoted some verses about why it's important to do and this and that. But ultimately, everything comes from Hashem. But Rabbeinu Bachya, who's very, very practical and logical. I think for me, one of the biggest surprises of this book, as I'm reading it through so carefully together with everybody, is how systematic and logical it is. It's really just logical. So he says logic dictates that if you don't put the food in your mouth, you're not going to be satiated. If you don't prepare the food, you're not going to be able to eat. And at times, if you don't go out there and make a living, you're not going to have any money. And yet, none of this is a contradiction to the fact that it's all in the hands of Hashem. Let's keep reading. Why? So the next topic on page 83 is the reason for human efforts. Having elaborated upon the fact that a person is often required to exert himself in order to obtain his livelihood and other needs through various means, the author continues to explain why God orchestrated it in such a way, and why he did not orchestrate that all our needs would be made readily available to us. In other words, the same God who set up this world, set it up in such a way that we actually have to put the food into our own mouths. And at times we have to go out and work in order to make a living. Why? There are two reasons why the Creator deemed it in such a way that a person must make efforts to pursue and search for the means of his livelihood and other needs. In other words, it didn't have to happen this way. If Hashem wanted, he could have given us everything in such a way that we actually have to put no effort in.
He would have left us in Gan Eden.
He would have left us in Gan Eden. That's a good way of saying it. Although even in Gan Eden, they were given a command to Avdol Shamra, to work it and to guard it. But he could have made it in such a way that we get nourishment from the air that we breathe. For example, no exertion required, but he didn't. Why not? It's actually interesting. It says, Adam la'amal yulad, man was created to work. He was born to work. There's a well-known sikha from the Rebbe where he asks why. We'll talk about it. We will get back to that. So here he says two reasons why Hashem created the world in such a way that we need to put in effort in order to live. The first reason is that God in his wisdom decided to test the person. Famous thing, Hashem is testing us. As to whether he will choose to serve God or to rebel against him. Therefore, he tested him in a manner through which the path he chose, in the path in which the person chose will be evident. God did this by causing a person to be needy and lacking that which is outside of him, be it food, drink, clothing, shelter, or cohabitation. He then instructed the person to pursue these things and obtain them through means that he prepared for them, but only in specific manners and at specific times. Those things that the Creator decreed that the person will obtain, he will obtain as a result of God making available all the means that he requires. While those things that God did not decree that he will obtain, he will not obtain, because those means will be withheld from him. As a result, it will be clear if he wishes to serve God or disobey him, based on his choice of the means with which to obtain his needs. On account of this, he will either be rewarded or punished, even if he did not end up obtaining that which he tried to obtain. In other words, the first reason Hashem created the world in such a way that we need to put in effort to get that which we want or need is to see how we get there. Will we get there in an ethical, moral, proper way? Or will we lie, cheat, and steal in order to get there? By making it an effort in order to get there, it creates the opportunity for us to make moral choices in how to go about it. Some things you will regret, some things you will never get. How you get there is up to you. You're not going to get anything Hashem doesn't want you to have. And if you put in the effort, you'll get everything Hashem wants you to have. But the process by which we get there is totally up to us. And by making effort required, it creates the capacity for ethical choices. Will we help others along the way?
Absolutely.
Will we do it in the way Hashem wants us to do it? So one reason, in other words, a philosophical question, why did Hashem create the world in such a way? Right, so the philosophical question is, why did God create the world in such a way that we have to put in effort in order to receive the blessings that we hope to receive? And the philosophical answer suggested over here is in order to give us the capacity to make moral choices. About the process in which we get there. Any questions or comments about this?
I think when things don't come easily, we're more appreciative of how difficult it is to get these things.
Appreciative of who?
Appreciative to God when things don't come easy.
So that's also true. That's part of it. I would say it's similar. In other words, if you haven't always had it, when you do get it, you're very grateful to Hashem for having it. If you would just have food like air, you wouldn't be grateful to Hashem for what you have. You would take it for granted. We would take a lot for granted. In fact, we do take a lot for granted. Mm-hmm. We do take a lot for granted. And I think it's connected to what we're saying over here, because one of the ethical lessons we need to learn in our process is the lesson of gratitude.
I hear you, Batya, but what I'm thinking as we're going through this book, that whether we have or we don't have, we have to find the way to have the same kind of gratitude to Hashem.
Right.
Firstly, we do have. Firstly, we do have. We have so much. We have so much. And gratitude is one of the lessons that we have to learn. Gratitude is one of the moral lessons we need to learn. So why did Hashem make it so difficult for us to get all the things we need? Why did Hashem make effort required? Because the effort creates the space, the need for effort creates the space for moral choices. To see how we're going to go about it. Will we always try to make a living ethically? Will we help people along the way? Will we be truthful with all our words? Will we be kind? Will we maintain our Torah observance in a difficult business environment? Will we remember that ultimately it's all coming from Hashem, and our effort is a requirement created by Hashem, but is not really where the blessing comes from. We're opening up channels, but the blessing comes from God. Will we remember that? In every effort, by the way, not just in making a living, in every effort that we do, will we remember that the power, that ultimately the blessing will come from Hashem? And therefore the way we do it is more important than what we're trying to achieve. Because the outcome is dependent on God. Right? The question is, do the means justify the end? Does the end justify the means, I mean? And there are those who say the end justifies the means. The main thing is the goal should be achieved. And how we get there isn't as important as the fact that we get there. The end justifies the means, some people claim. Rabbeinu Bachya says the exact opposite. The end isn't even in your hands. The end is in the hands of God.
It's true.
What is in our choice and in our capacity to decide is how we're going to get there. How are we going to behave along the way? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining today.